Oh, stop laughing and giggling about a predator who preyed on girls and raped them. It's called pedophilia, and the cover-up and the crime related to it is only making it worse in the Trump administration. It makes my skin crawl to watch Donald Trump call a pedophile and the attacks on girls to be, quote, boring stuff. And it makes my skin crawl to watch the Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, who lived next door to the townhome on the Upper East Side in New York, where Epstein did a lot of his preying on girls, and he bought his building from Epstein in a trust that was also owned by the owner of the Limited. Remember that department store? Stop giggling. Stop snorting. This is why this administration is going down the drain, is because they're so out of touch with the morals of America. I never thought that I would be able to get behind a MAGA principle. But I am firmly anti-pedophilia. I am firmly against people in positions of power covering it up and not acknowledging their connectivity to it. I'm fired up. Came back from holiday. Got to talk about it here on Legal AF. Take a minute. Important stuff here. Take a minute. Hit the free subscribe button. It helps this channel stay on when we take on the mighty and the powerful like this. Without outside investors, we need your help. Okay, let's get down to the story. First of all, where am I getting the giggling and the laughing and the boring stuff from? And then I'm going to talk about a new filing by Donald Trump's own Department of Justice and his Solicitor General, John Sauer. If he wants to know why it's not boring stuff, maybe he should read how the Epstein pedophile abuse conduct, how it's described in the Supreme Court filing in the last 24 hours by Donald Trump's own Department of Justice. Now, Donald Trump is probably going to get around to pardoning the surviving participant in that ring, Ghislaine Maxwell. But he should read what's being filed, and then maybe he'll understand why people are calling for his head. Bipartisan, the leaders of the MAGA in the Congress, in the Senate, in the social media influencer world, all uniting with Democrats and Elon Musk. Release the damn reports already. We know they exist. We know we know the government raided that townhouse that Howard Lutnick lived next door to. I wonder if Howard Lutnick was around when the raid happened in around 2014 or 2015 or so. That would be interesting. So we know there's a whole treasure trove of information and documents. Nobody's ever seen the light. It hasn't seen the light of day. Let me play you the clip first that got me pissed off. Let's roll the clip.
Why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled?
I don't understand it. Why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given. Don't forget, we went through years of the Mueller witch hunt and all of the different things, the Steele dossier, which was all fake. All that information was fake. But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think, well, really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, let them give it. Anything that's credible, I would say, let them have it.
So let's start with the boring details, then I'll get back to Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary. Okay. Let's start with boring details. All right. You want to know boring details? Why it's not a hoax? Why it's not weak-minded people? I guess he's calling his own Solicitor General weak people. Because here's how his weak Solicitor General, in a filing he just made to the United States Supreme Court. When I say just made, just to give you a sense, and I'll of course I'm reading from it, and I'll put this up in Substack. This is in the last 24 hours. Okay, here we go. Ready for boring? From about 1994 to 2004, this is on page 2, petitioner, that's Maxwell, coordinated, facilitated, and contributed to the multi-millionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse of numerous young women and underage girls. That's a polite way of saying he raped them. The abuse followed a pattern. Petitioner and Epstein would identify vulnerable girls living under difficult circumstances, isolate them from their friends and families, gaining their trust by giving them gifts and pretending to be their friends. Are you bored yet? Normalize the discussion of sexual topics and sexual touching with the girls, and then transition to sexual abuse, often through the pretext of a girl giving Epstein a massage. I'm not bored. Petitioner, I'm disgusted, but I'm not bored. Petitioner and Epstein paid victims large amounts of cash to provide Epstein with sexualized massages, and after a victim had begun giving massages, they would offer her additional money to recruit other girls. Petitioner and Epstein carried on these activities out among other locations. Get ready. Epstein's residences in Palm Beach, Florida, a walking distance, short couple of blocks from Mar-a-Lago, by the way, and New York City, directly next door with an adjacent wall to Howard Lutnick's house that he bought from Epstein, and just down the street, one bus stop and one subway stop from Trump Tower. The argument that Maxwell is making, and why you can see why they're campaigning so hard for Donald Trump to pardon her, and why I think it may work, is even though she was sentenced to 20 years for sex trafficking by a New York jury, and then by Judge Nathan, a federal judge, they're trying, and I don't think it's going to be hard for Donald Trump to take this bait. Donald Trump wants Epstein, the Epstein scandal, the Epstein sexual predatory behavior, the raping of girls, Donald Trump's relationship with Epstein dating back 20 years, him running the town with Epstein as wingmen, him chasing after the same women and potentially girls, the allegations by Michael Wolff, the journalist who interviewed Epstein, that he saw photos of young girls sitting on Donald Trump's lap. He wants all of that to go away. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, used to work at Cantor Fitzgerald, by the way, wants it all to go away because he bought the house that he lives in Manhattan from Jeffrey Epstein and a trust owned by Epstein and Mr. Wexner, who used to run Limited until his relationship with Epstein ran him out of the Limited. They all want this to go away. Pam Bondi wants it to go away because Donald Trump told her to make it go away. So one of the ways to make it go away, you know, if at first you don't succeed, keep trying, try again. Donald Trump's not having any success in trying to push this demented, depraved, sexually depraved genie back into a bottle. Boom, boom, boom. Not working. Backfiring. The more he pushes, the more he covers up, the more MAGA wants his head on a pike. MAGA. You notice I didn't say the Democrats. They'll just be there for the byproduct. MAGA. Speaker of the House, Senate Majority Leader, all the right-wing podcasters, all the right-wing social media influencers, Laura Loomer, Tucker Carlson, everybody calling for Elon Musk, of course, gleefully, calling for Donald Trump to come clean and stop covering up. Sometimes it's not just the cover. Sometimes it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. It looks like you're guilty, even if, in this case, you may be. So Donald Trump's not having any success with that. So, plan B. Rewrite history, like he did for Jan 6th. Jan 6th isn't an insurrection, the first attack on the Capitol since the War of 1812, which was burning and in flames with pitched battle like in medieval times, with a bloody battle to get in and break in and to assassinate elected officials and their staff. Oh no, it was a walk in the park. It was a love fest. It were patriots, not on both sides apparently. They were just patriots. And in order to continue with that, since he didn't see it as any crime, and since they all said they were just following his lead, he pardoned them all. See? Because in his mythology, there was no crime committed. So they should be pardoned. Epstein, transitive property here. Epstein, nothing to see here. Boring. Why? Weak people are involved with this. Why are you continuing this? I'm going to make it magically go away. Epstein is gone under challenged circumstances. It's only two theories. He's either murdered or he hanged himself. You be the judge. I'll let you be the judge on that one. But he's not here. Maxwell's still here. Story stays alive as her lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, a guy I know down in Miami, is representing her. He's campaigning to get her that pardon. He's aiming at Donald Trump's narcissism and at his desire to cover up Epstein, shut her up, pardon her, although she could also write a book, pardon her, and keep the dream alive that he will never have to talk about Epstein again, which we know will blow up in his face as if he poured kerosene on a barbecue. Now, let me just give you what the Supreme Court case is about on the filing. David Marcus even went so far to say, I'm sure Donald Trump didn't know that John Sauer, his own criminal defense appellate lawyer, who's the Solicitor General, I'm sure he knows everything he did, but I'm sure he didn't know that he took the position that the non-prosecution agreement that Epstein signed, let me back up, in South Florida, where Epstein lived, he avoided prosecution, even though for years there was smoke and even fire about his sexual predatory activity towards young girls. The Miami Herald and its fearless reporter ran after this story for like 10 years. At one point, Alex Acosta, who was then the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, entered into a non-prosecution agreement, an NPA, with Epstein in return for almost nothing in order to close the chapter of the investigation. In it, it also said that the Southern District of Florida was not going to prosecute any co-conspirator of Epstein. Now, he signed to the pot. He and Acosta signed that. Ghislaine Maxwell didn't sign it. His girlfriend and oftentimes madam, who put together these, it's not even a madam, I don't even know what you call it, fellow pedophile. I mean, that's a better way to put it. But she didn't sign it. And in that non-prosecution agreement, as pointed out by Donald Trump's own Department of Justice, there is not a global get-out-of-jail-free card. It doesn't mean that the Southern District of New York or another federal district couldn't prosecute her based on same evidence or not same evidence. So this argument that Florida's Epstein agreement somehow covered the New York prosecution for Maxwell, I have to agree with John Sauer. I agree with John Sauer a lot in this filing, including in the non-boring details about the predatory activity of Epstein, very good friend with Donald Trump, and landlord, seller of real estate to Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary. Well, I believe a lot in what he writes there. But Marcus is representing his client. So he's trying to argue to Donald Trump, you're the maker of the art of the deal. And there was a deal and an agreement and government needs to live by it. It wasn't an agreement that was signed between Maxwell. I mean, I give him a lot of credit, but Maxwell didn't sign that agreement and it doesn't bind the Department of Justice there. But I think the next shoe to drop is when the Supreme Court rejects this appeal by Maxwell, I think Trump's going to pardon her right out of the Jan 6 playbook, right out of the rewrite history and change the mythology. You know, you don't like how people are talking about you, start a different conversation. And that's what he's going to do again. At the end, we got the other kind of link here, data point, is the firing of Maureen Comey. Maureen Comey, a career prosecutor, there for over 20 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York, also happens to be the daughter of James Comey. So what? You know, she gets fired. Republicans, parents and children are one and the same. Judges and their children, prosecutors and their children, FBI directors and their children. Nobody can have an independent thought. A woman is chattel, apparently, owned by their fathers. It's disgusting, but misogynistically disgusting and consistent with Donald Trump's old worldview. She gets fired. What's her claim to fame besides the P. Diddy prosecution? She successfully prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell. She just got fired by Trump's Department of Justice. Another cover-up data point. Get rid of the prosecutor who convicted Ghislaine Maxwell. Now they're just going to have to deal with this brief they just filed, but it doesn't matter to Donald Trump because he'll say, I looked at the file myself and I made my own decision and poof, pardon. What I liked about Comey is that she basically called Donald Trump a tyrant on the way out. She said, I'm paraphrasing, she said to her in a resignation letter that without fear or favor is the governing ethos of this office. And I know the fear part is creeping in, especially when people get fired. But you can't let it. And you have to do your job zealously and without fear or favor, because that fear creeping in is the tyrant's way. I mean, she's calling out Donald Trump as a tyrant, and good for her for doing that. This is a person who did not want to take a cushy 7 or 8 figure job working in some sort of white shoe firm as a criminal defense lawyer. She wanted to be a career prosecutor, like my colleague, Karen Freeman-Agnifilo, just 30 years working as a prosecutor, bipartisan, apolitical, the whole thing. And Donald Trump and the Department of Justice stole that dream from her. And we're less off for it. This brain drain at the Department of Justice, it'll get fixed by the Democrats getting the White House in 2028, but it'll take a minute. And in the meantime, the Department of Justice has no credibility. It's completely in tatters in front of federal judges. And we're seeing the results of that as well. So until my next hot take a moment, hit the free subscribe button, help us continue to grow this pro-democracy channel. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.